the propulsion system of choice. But there's a problem.
A teaspoon of antimatter might be able to propel us across the solar system. But that same teaspoon also has the power to destroy an entire city. And once a spacecraft is out in deep space, simple accidents can suddenly tip the balance from life to death. As we venture to Mars and beyond, with journeys lasting years at a time, the chances of becoming stranded in space will become much greater.
For example, on a flight to Mars, what if a micrometeoroid punches an oxygen tank? What if you just are simply running out of breathable air? There is nothing you can do. You can die graciously is what you can do, however long it takes.
Another source of disasters, especially with journeys measured in years, is something that many people overlook.
One thing we forget is our fellow man, our fellow astronauts. If you're cooped up in this tiny little space capsule for, let's say, a year at a time going to Mars or years going into deep space, you can go crazy. You can get claustrophobic. The guy next door could really get on your nerves and you want to strangle him after a certain point.
Although the incidents aren't highly publicized, crew members have had problems getting along in the past with dangerous results.
There was at least one Soviet space station crew of the 1970s that didn't get along pretty famously and actually supposedly had a fist fight. These stresses are going to manifest themselves on these long-duration missions. Anybody who thinks they aren't is fooling himself.
And to make things even more interesting, Russian cosmonauts supposedly have firearms stowed on board as a precaution after an extremely off-course landing in 1965.
The crew landed up in the woods in Siberia and were there for about 3 days. And they had to fight off wolves until they were rescued. After that particular mission, the Soviets decided that they were going to put a sawed-off shotgun in every Soyuz capsule in case something like that happened again.
The cosmonauts are now rumored to have handguns stored in emergency kits. But no one is eager to offer any official details of guns in space. And the risk of having a weapon aboard isn't just a concern if tempers flare.
There is actually a documented case of a payload specialist who flew on a shuttle flight, whose experiment failed, and he spent his whole life getting this experiment ready. It failed, and he actually talked about killing himself. And the crew themselves actually tried to protect him and guarded the hatch so he wouldn't kill them.
Even with all of the space travel lessons learned so far, one thing is clear. Nothing can completely prevent disasters from striking in the future.
If we're going to continue human spaceflight, we have to accept the risk because it is a very dangerous occupation. But we have to manage the risk, and that's going to require good technical people and good leadership.
But just as surely as disasters will strike, there is another certainty when it comes to manned space exploration.
I think we have a gene for exploration, a gene for discovery. Not only is it good for our evolution, because we find new avenues to reproduce and to colonize, but I think it's also inside the spirit of human beings to want to know what's out there. Is it possible to reach areas that we've never been before? And the thrill of being the first person to explore new terrain, that's fantastic.